Good morning and welcome to our Tuckahoe History Project. Today we would like to greet those people who are watching from home and residents who have moved away and are watching it on YouTube. My name is Alice White and I am co-chairperson with former Mayor White of the Tuckahoe History Group. Our guests today are Richard Forliano and Lessa Hemline from the Eastchester Historic Society, and they're helping us with our open house. Today we will have our members and friends to guide you through our mini marble museum, which is very, very interesting. Check out our folders. We have 150 loose leaf books filled with Tuckahoe history. This year we have expanded our outreach program to our senior centers, the fountain, for service clubs, our trolley tours with Richard Forliano and Sheila Marcotte. Our history pictures are now being displayed at Angelina's Restaurant, the Fountains, the Tower Club, the Old Mill, and Riverview. They have all sponsored us and put our history pictures in their restaurants and centers. This year we have a lot of emails from people all over the world. We just had one from England who found books in a bookstore and contacted us, and Richard was going to England, so he met with her. We just had an inquiry from Alabama looking for things from their family. We're now on the Village website, and we're also on YouTube. So those of you who are not able to come down to visit us, you will see what we do when you watch YouTube. We want to thank all our friends and members for all their help through the years. Thank you so much. Okay, I would like to introduce you to Richard Forliano, who is the
Eastchester town historian.
And also Lessa Hemline, who is the curator for the Eastchester Historic Society. And they come and they help us, and we work together with their society and our group. So they would like to say a few words to those of you at home who don't know them. Hold on.
I owe a tremendous debt of gratitude to the Tuckahoe History Committee. If you look over here at the wonderful collection of material, over 150 loose leaves and artifacts that they've been collecting ever since 2002, right? When we put together our book for the 350th, much of what we put into the book couldn't have been written without the wonderful information that you guys have collected over the last 15 years. But I want to thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Lessa Hemline, curator at the Marble Schoolhouse, which houses the Eastchester Historical Society. I was also, along with Mr. Forliano, privileged to be able to write a chapter in the book about the rivers here, especially the Bronx River. And again, like Mr. Forliano, I received so much information just researching here. But what it did for me was it introduced me to Alice and Phil White and the other wonderful members of the Tuckahoe History Committee. And if it weren't for them, a lot of Eastchester and Tuckahoe's history wouldn't be available to all of us. And it's really the people in the past who make us who we are today. So it's a joy to be able to find out all of the history from the Tuckahoe History Committee. And thank you, Alice and Phil.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The program is going to be Tuckahoe at the turn of the century. A lot of old clips from various sources. We're very pleased, too, to have Arlene Gruber talk about the different slides that are going to be shown. So as soon as we get started with that, are we on?
We're ready to go, yes.
All right. Arlene, it's all yours.
Okay. This is the village of Tuckahoe. This map is dated at 1893, and it's on Columbus Avenue, formerly called Breckenridge. And it started the main street north to Maynard on Columbus Avenue. The village of Tuckahoe illustrative aerial map dated 1923. The map includes Tuckahoe, Crestwood, and Waverly Square. This is an aerial view of Tuckahoe, west of Grand Central Railroad, from the Parkway Casino north to the Parkway Oval. This photo is around 1920. You could see on this photo, I think, a little bit of Burroughs Welcome in the building in the back there.
We have a pointer. Do you want to point to it?
No,
Okay.
I'm okay.
Okay.
Now, this is the town of Eastchester map showing Tuckahoe and Bronxville. And this is photo is around 1900. I just want to tell everyone, I have a book at home. It's called Polk's Directory. And it's a directory of Tuckahoe, Eastchester, and Bronxville with all people's names that lived in certain houses. No telephone numbers, but it shows their occupation and what they did. And in one section is like the people from Tuckahoe, you would have alphabetical. And then right after that is a list of every street and every house. Even if the house was vacant, it had who lived in every house there. It's really a treasure. There's only 2 books in existence, and I have one. How I got it was, Bronxville has one, I understand. But the one I have, when the Fee Building, that 101 Main Street, the Washington Hotel, when my friend, the Haas's the Mays owned that building, when everyone had gone on their way, Ellen and her father sold the house. And I was down in the basement, and I knew that house inside and out. And we used to play all the time up in the attic, down in the basement. It was like a bomb shelter. It was all concrete and everything. And the book was there, and I said, "Do you want this?" They said, "Oh no, I don't want that." You know. So I took it, and I didn't realize it's a treasure. It really is. And if anyone wants, I usually have it down here in the village. It's for people to look at, but it's really all the old families, and like my grandfather, Daniel J. Meyer. He had a horse and buggy first, and then he had a gasoline station, which was right where the old village hall was. And it was really nice. And it says in the book, Daniel J. Meyer, gasoline. And then my grandmother, Marguerite, home. That's how they did it for the woman that stayed home. My Aunt Peg was a sales lady in Bronxville in a store, and so they have Margaret Meyer, sales lady, and my mother, Catherine. It's a treasure. If anyone ever wants to come and look at it, I'll have it here. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. This is the intersection of Columbus Avenue, which is formerly called Breckenridge, and Main Street, looking west. The corner building with the turreted roof is the Depot Square Hotel, Frank Fritz Restaurant, and Hubble and Sons Beer. To the right on the right going down. The photo is dated 1907. Please note the cobblestone walks, the roads, the trolley tracks, and the sidewalk, the horse hitching posts. They're all on the side there. Does anybody remember the trolley that used to go from like Nepperhan over? Yeah, we used to. That was interesting. If you went to Yonkers and all that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you transferred. You always had transfers. It was really interesting. Okay. This is the west side of Columbus Avenue, formerly called Breckenridge Street. The buildings shown are the Summer Gardens, the harness shop, contractor and decorator office, and the Leon Brewery and Pool Hall with moving pictures. The photo is dated 1907. I think that's the first part of Columbus Avenue. You know where years ago, where Caparasso's had the barbershop on that side. Yeah, I think so. That's where it was, yeah. Okay. The west side of Columbus Avenue between Main Street and Underhill. Conlin and Company coal wood, they had their coal, the wood, and all, and later they expanded over to lime kiln. Yeah, later on. The feed office with a shed and freight yard is to the right, and the cobblestone road and the horse and carriage in the Conlin storage. I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a there's a horse in there, believe it or not. And this picture is dated 1907. Okay. This is also the west side of Columbus Avenue, across from Underhill Street, looking south. This is where now, I think where the post office is in Epstein's. Up, at the foot of Underhill Street. The railroad cars provide supplies to Conlin and Company Freight Yard from the exit spur off the Grand Central Railroad. This is photo is 1907.
That's a great shot.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Oh, this is the west side of Columbus Avenue, across from Circuit. This must be right. Yeah, it is right across from Circuit.
Where is now?
A little bit, a tiny bit further. The building shown is the Nick Fagnani apartment building, contracting office and pool room. Beer was brewed at this location. Nick Fagnani and his family are shown in this photo. On top of the building, there is a plaque, Fagnani and Sons or something like that. Okay, 1900 this photo is. The intersection of Columbus Avenue and Main Street looking east. The building shown at the corner of the Kramer apartment building and the shoe store. The building the building to the left is the Tuckahoe Hose Company barn and horse yard. This is in 1907. It's kind of a light picture, but it's okay.
And where is that?
This is Columbus Avenue looking east. So it's like years later, it was on the corner was Bruno's, wasn't it? Bruno's a drugstore, and they had the insurance company upstairs,
The Russell's one, Ricarvellis?
That's on the other side,
okay.
across the street from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where the new
Yeah, where the new mall is. Yeah, exactly, where the new mall
I
is.
have to get my bearings.
Yeah, no, it's where the new mall is. Okay, this is the east side of Columbus Avenue between Main and Underhill. And this is where the stores, where Caparasso's barber shop was, and the paint store, Cowers, the bowling alley, the building there, okay? Yeah, okay. East side of Columbus between Main and Underhill. The building shown as the Tuckahoe Hose Company Horse Barn and Grazing Yard. Note, Main Street School is in the background. This is the building that we're in now. You see it way up on top?
Oh, that's good.
This is, photo is dated 1907 also.
Grandfather was
Okay. Okay. The east side of Columbus Avenue between Main and Underhill, which we just saw that barn. The buildings shown are the Tuckahoe Hose Company and barn. The horse-drawn apparatus and fire crew. I know I have a relative up there. I definitely have a relative up there. Okay, that's fine. And this is looking northwest on Columbus, formerly Breckenridge. The property beyond the apparatus is the Conlin and Company Freight Yard, with the Grand Central Railroad adjacent to it. The roadway is cobblestone. This photo is 1900. Look at the horses and you see the railroad track? Railroad track, the either trolley or railroad there. Okay, this is the east side of Columbus between Main Street and Underhill Street. The buildings shown are the Tuckahoe Hose Company and the Italian grocery store. Main Street School is in the background. You can hardly see that one, but this is 1907 also. Okay. East side of Columbus between Main and Underhill. Again, the buildings shown are the August Chapery Horseshoeing and General Jobbing Building, and the Lyceum Stock Company building, which was built in 1886 and became the Lyceum School. This photo is dated in 1907. A street view of the intersection of Columbus and Underhill Street. looking east. The building shown is the Lyceum Stock Company building, which later became the Lyceum School, then the Tuckahoe Bowling Center. Okay, and for the people who lived in Tuckahoe, if you went up Columbus Avenue in the building, it was, years ago, they had a sweatshop there. Bruno's had it. Yeah. Oh, you did? That's really. She was 14. Okay, but I remember young walking up there, and they had always had the workers, and you see the big fabric, all the fabric, and they had all the ladies at the sewing machines there. It was really, yes, some of them work by hand.
It's on the corner now of the wall. It's where the Italian job is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right down here, right on Underhill Street. There, that's where it was. It was so that's that building, and it later became the bowling alley, and they had somebody had to set up the pins and all. It was nothing was automatic at that time. Pin setters, yeah, nothing was automatic. Okay. Okay, this is a street view of the old stone cotton mill, looking north from Main Street. The mill building was built around 1812 and was later purchased by the Hodgman Rubber Company in 1852. Now, this is the old mill that's the restaurant now, that's in Tuckahoe.
They donated one of our prizes today.
Yeah. The rubber raincoats, Hodgman, yes, they did for the servicemen. Old Mill was very generous. They recently they just gave us a gift certificate to raffle off here. Yeah, that was really nice of them. Yeah. Street view of the old stone cotton mill and associated buildings looking northwest from Main Street, Yonkers Avenue, on the bridge over the Bronx River. We used to say if you were over the bridge, you were in Yonkers. That's right.
Where Riverview is.
Yeah, where Riverview is now, you go in that.
Falls there.
Yes, there's falls there and everything else. It's still there. And to the right is now the Riverview Apartments. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Street view of the old stone cotton mill and associated buildings looking northwest from Main Street and Yonkers Avenue on the bridge over the Bronx River. That's a great picture. This is this picture's from 1900. That's a nice picture. This is a street view of the Bronx River looking north. The buildings shown on the right are associated with the old stone cotton mill and the Hodgman Rubber Company. The building to the left is a restaurant. This is a photo from the 1900s also. This is a street view of the bridge over the Bronx River and the Hodgman Rubber Company again, looking north from the corner of Main Street and Yonkers Avenue. The buildings shown are associated with the old stone cotton mill and the Hodgman Rubber Company, and this is also 1900. Here it is now. This is a street view of the Hodgman Rubber Company, located at the corner of Main Street and Lake Avenue. The Rubber Company was the largest rubber product manufacturer on the East Coast and was in operation for 75 years. The building would later become Burris Welcome, U.S. Vitamin, and Revlon, and now it is the Riverview Apartments, and they've all been done over, and they're lovely. This is also another picture of the same, the Hodgman Rubber Company on the corner, and it's the same building there. It's just a repeat there. Okay, this is a street view of the Hodgman Rubber Company delivery truck and the workers. That was a good picture. Very nice. This is a street view of the Hodgman house located on the northeast corner of Lake Avenue and Main Street. The New York Central Railroad ran to the right of the house. This is a photo from the 1900s also. In the winter, that looks pretty. This is a street view of the Hodgman Rubber Hodgman house located at the northeast corner of Lake Avenue and Main Street. And as we said, the railroad is located to the right of the house. This is a 1900. That's a nice house. No, it's better. Yeah, the parking lot.
Where Growlers is, right?
Yes, where Growlers is now. This is a street view of Main Street looking west at the intersection of Main and Lake. The building located in the center is a C.R. Dusenberry building prior to the Bentley building. You know, the corner of where Pappy's Theodore's it was years ago. That whole building. Yeah, Bentley's is now. It's right in the corner. Cornell's was there before the fire and all that. That's the same building. And to the far right is the distance, is the old stone mill to the right.
And that's the railroad down there, right? And it's the railroad, is it?
No, to the right. Yeah. The street across, a street view of Main Street looking west at the intersection of Main and Lake Avenue. The building shown replaces C.R. Dusenberry store and preceded the Bentley building. Note the diner on the left. Was that Bill Dunn's diner? I don't know if that was the diner. There was a Village Diner there, but that was further down.
I remember that. Where Angelina's was?
Yeah, where Angelina's is, there was a diner there. There was it was called the Village Diner. It was, I knew the Hellmans had it first, and then the Savage people. My mother worked there in the diner. I'm just wondering, before that, it might have been. It might have been. I think that was Bill's Diner. Okay.
Sorry, technical difficulty. I have to come right after.
But in that Bentley building upstairs, it was Dr. Palmer for years, a dentist. He was on the corner part. You remember that? Dr. Palmer and
Is that why they call it Bentleys now? But it's still called that.
yeah, yeah. I don't know why they called it.
They call it Bentleys.
Yeah, they call it Bentleys. But it was Theodore's. Theodore's had it for years. When I was 16, I worked there. I used to come in the morning, and I used to, Burr's Welcome would be opening, so I had to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would stay, from 6 to 9. No, this is in the summer. From 6 to 9, I would work, cleaning up and waiting on the tables and all. Then you'd have a lull, and then about 10:30, 11 o'clock, the lunch people used to start coming in. And then I finally was able to go home at 2 o'clock. It was fine, but that's what you did in those days. Okay, the street view of the intersection of Main and Lake, looking north. The buildings shown are the ladies' dress shop and a general store. Trolley tracks can be seen on the Main Street. This was the corner. There, yes, the Maplewood, in later years, the Maplewood, and then going further, going east was the Sammy's Deli, and the stores. Remember the Shoemaker, Sue Ulrich, and, right up to Emil Hex. Yeah, and that was where Growlers and all that is now, and that big parking lot. Okay. This is street view of Main Street between Lake and the railroad, looking north. The buildings shown are a general store, barber shop, and a hand laundry. Trolley tracks can be seen on the Main Street. This is a photo from 1907. This is street view from Main Street between Lake and the railroad, looking north. The building stores shown are the Meat Market and Tommy's Restaurant and Hotel. The trolley tracks can be seen on the main streets. This is also 1907. It's a nice building. This is a street view from Main between Lake and the railroad looking north. The buildings shown are Tommy's Restaurant, Underhill Real Estate, an insurance company, and plumbing supplies in the rear of the building. The Grand Central Railroad is to the right of the tree, and the Hodgman Rubber Company is in the background. If you could see that, it's way in the background. This is 1907. This is a little difficult to see, but this is a map of downtown Tuckahoe showing the location of the Duesenberry building and how it extended into Depot Square and the present configuration. Sagamore Road at that time was called Duesenberry Avenue. This is nice. Street view of Main Street at the intersection of Lake and Main, looking east. The large building on the right side is the Duesenberry building, which housed the town offices with stores on the ground level. Trolley tracks can be seen on the Main Street. This is at the Depot Square, and it's where the building is now, where Carvel is on the corner. And Carvel and the antique and the barber shop and florist, all along that stretch. That's what was, and they used to house the town offices there. There was even a post office there at one time. And a bakery. I remember there was a bakery years ago. Cushman's. Yeah, Cushman's Bakery was there too. Street view from Main Street looking north at the Rubley building prior to the railroad tracks being lowered. Note the railroad gatehouse to the left. Rubley invented the toggle bolt. This is 1900. Toggle bolt. Yeah, he did. And he was the mayor. Wasn't it mayor? Alice's favorite person, yeah. Mayor Rubley.
He had 3 college degrees at 17.
Wow.
And parents sent him to Innsbruck, Austria to be a priest. That didn't last a long time.
Really? Yeah, that was interesting. That, yeah, that's true. Okay, this is a street view of Main Street looking north between the railroad tracks to the left and Columbus Avenue to the right. The buildings shown are a general store and a bar with a hotel above it and Depot Square Hotel. This photo is taken from the Depot Square and it's 1900. This is, years ago they had A&P, Date Shopwell right there. And when you cross that bridge, they had these, it was very interesting, the metal, you know, in the bridge. And I was so small, when my mother was in the store, I would wiggle my way into one of those things. My mother left me there one day. It was really interesting. Yeah, on the bridge. You remember the sections they had? Yeah, it was really good. But I remember being online when they had the rationing. And, you know, if they had butter, you know, you had to stand in line, or sugar. And I do remember that, being online there. But after, I don't know, it was before Date. It might have been an A&P. And then there was, where that hotel is, there was a luncheonette. And then further on down. Huh? Longabody's had a little luncheonette. And also the 5 and 10 was there. Yeah, Handel's. Mr. Handel's 5 and 10. Yeah. You worked all over. Okay.
And Roma's was there temporarily.
Yeah, temporarily. Yeah, they were there. And the dry cleaner, Kent Dry Cleaning. Yes. Sammy's was way down further, the other side of the bridge. The other side of the bridge. Okay. Yeah, before the Maplewood. This was a street view of the building of Main Street Bridge. The photo taken was from the Depot Square. The Depot Square was raised and the railroad tracks were lowered in the process. Buildings in the background were along Lake Avenue. And this is around 1900. Look at that. That's a good picture. This is the bridge. This is a street view of the Main Street looking east from the top of a temporary bridge over the railroad tracks. On the right side is the Duesenberry building, that building we just spoke about, located in the Depot Square. Yeah. This is a street view of the Tuckahoe train station from Depot Square. The train station is in the process of being raised as the tracks train tracks are being lowered, and the bridge is being built.
Starbucks.
Yeah, Starbucks now. Yeah, there it is. Look at it, cleaned up there. There was a diner. Look at that diner there. Street view of Main Street Railroad Bridge looking north. The building shown on the right is the Rubley building. This is now 1900, but is that a diner there? Oh, no, it's a trolley. I'm sorry, it's a trolley. But it looks like it was a diner.
Yeah, I can't see that.
Yeah, it's a trolley.
Trolley stop by the building.
Yeah, right by the building. Okay. Street view of Main Street looking east after completion of the railroad bridge. Located on the right is the Dusenberry building in Depot Square. Yeah, look at the steps going down. Yep. This is a street view of Main Street looking north between Railroad and Columbus. The Square Hotel is the same building, same location as the Rubley building. The Grand Central Railroad located on the left. This is 1912. Yeah, we had the.
Most of those hotels were rooming houses, and they called them hotels so they could sell whiskey on the weekend.
Was it marble? Was it for the marble?
Was it for the marble people? Yeah, for the workers, marble workers, yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't be counted because they lived in hotels, and that's why Italians, beginning of the 20th century, were underrepresented in the census. There were more Italians in the census said there were.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay. This is a street view of Main Street looking north between the railroad and Columbus Avenue. The Square Hotel is located above the street level stores. This photo was taken in 1915. They must have had some kind of bazaar. Look at that. Yeah. Look at that sign. Yeah. They even had that. Look at the awnings on that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The leader, it said the leader.
Yeah, I remember the leader. Street view of 35 Main Street looking north at newspaper store with the owner John May, with his wife, below the Square Hotel. Look at the.
That Patty May's grandfather?
Yes, I think it was. Yes. This photo was from 1915. But look at. No, that was a completely different. May family owned. They ended up owning the. But they owned on Main Street. They had a restaurant, and part of the Mays owned Washington Hotel. They. Not Patty May. I think it was Patrick May, the old one. I have the all the papers when that was sold, from Mr. Fee to the May family. I have all the. Yes, that's the. Later on, it was Dottie Fuchs and her husband, and Margie May, and they later had the Plaza Lounge, which became Crabtree's and all that, in Crestwood. Yeah, American Bistro also, yes. This is a street view of Main Street looking north between the railroad and Columbus Avenue. This photo is taken from the Depot Square. Note the Dusenberry building is located at the right. This is, this is really the Depot Square there. Okay. Newspaper photograph of the Tuckahoe Municipal building located in the Depot Square, which housed the police and government offices prior to the Tuckahoe Village Hall. The town offices were also located in the Dusenberry building, and this was 1900. Right along there it was good. A street view of the Depot Square looking south at the Municipal building, which was the first Village Hall. This was 1902. Look at that building. That's it. Yeah. Okay. This is a street view looking at past the original Tuckahoe train station with tracks at the grade level. In the background is the Depot Square and Pugmire Hotel. On the right is a hardware store. This is in 1860. That's a big picture. Yeah. This is a street view of the Tuckahoe train station prior to the present station. Hardware store beyond is located in the Depot Square. Yeah, look at that. Street view of the Depot Square hardware store with the Tuckahoe train station located on the right. Just a little portion of the train station.
That's like near where the old village hall is?
Yeah, and yes, and yeah, in 1900s, yes.
Wow. That's a great picture.
This is a street view of Depot Square and the new train station looking west. The First Union Free Church building is located in the center with the railroad gate shown on Main Street. The railroad is located at street level. That building was a church, right before the bridge. Yeah, the photo is 1900. Okay, this is a street view of Depot Square looking south at the train station with street level train. Note the horse trout, is that how you say trout? Trout in the Depot Square. This is a 1900 postcard right there. My grandfather had the horse and buggies there. Probably was his era. Yeah. My grandfather Meyer. And then the Grubers took over with the taxis. Later on in the years, Gruber taxi. Yep. Street view of Depot Square looking south on Main Street. Note the Tuckahoe train station with train at grade level and the First Union Free Church. That's the church we were just talking about. The trolley tracks and horse-driven wagon are in the foreground. This is also 1900. You see part of a horse and buggy over there.
Where was the church?
It was on the other side of the. Was it on the other side of the track, Phil? Wasn't it? That Free Church. That was. We didn't know it was there, and all of a sudden we saw these pictures with these churches in it. Really? We don't know. We don't have any information. If somebody else said it, we don't have any other info.
Union Church.
Yeah.
The Union congregation.
Yeah. They. Okay. Oh, look at that. Okay, this is a street view of the Tuckahoe train station with the arrival of the first electric train from New York City on March 14th, 1910. Well, yeah, all these people, they were so happy. Everyone's dressed nicely, and look at them. Flags, everything else. Street level of Depot Square looking south from Main Street. Note the Tuckahoe train station with railroad bridge and stair tower. That's a tower there, over there. Trolley tracks can be seen on the Main Street cobblestone. Yeah.
The other side of the steps.
Yes, on the other side of the steps going down is when you cross over the bridge there, it's still there. And they used to have an elevator in that because when they would bring the papers and all, they would go up on the elevator. And Mr. Paternostro used to do that. Yeah, with a cigar. That's cute. Street view of Depot Square looking north from the train station, showing the Duesenberry building on the corner of Main Street in Columbus. And you notice the stores. I mean, you can't see it in this photo, but we do know all the stores. We have pictures of them. And to the right, there was the leader. Remember, the leader was. Where the what? Yeah, but there was leader there was one time. Yeah. Remember the leader? My Aunt Helen McComb worked there. Yep. That's 1910. This is a street view of the Duesenberry building and Depot Square taken from Main Street. And if you notice, it's still the structure is the same to this day. They have all the offices, the dentists, and everything else. And the corner right now is a Carvel, and then you go down to the antique, and you go down to the barber and the florist, and the liquor. Yeah, amazing, beautiful. Street view of Duesenberry building and Depot Square taken from the Tuckahoe train station. Note the town offices on the second floor and the businesses on the first floor. The Sagamore Road is on the right. Sagamore Road went up at an angle there. That was the corner. Street view looking south from corner of Main Street and Columbus Avenue, showing the back of the Duesenberry building. Now, in the back of that now is the parking lot, and the Main Street parking lot. You know, where we park our cars across the street here. That's the back of the Duesenberry building. Oh, here we are. Street view looking south from Depot Square of the Duesenberry building and Tuckahoe Village Hall. That's a nice picture. That really is a nice picture. Look how nice that is. This is a street view looking south from Depot Square, showing the Tuckahoe Village Hall. This was in 1913. That was nice. And on the right was the police station. On the left was the library. That was nice. The street looking north at Depot Square and the Duesenberry building. The Tuckahoe train station can be seen on the left side of the picture. In the background is a square hotel. Yeah, they look like they're running. There's a race. Street view of the intersection of Main and Columbus looking north. The building shown is the Kramer Shoe Store and the apartment building. Right there, where we said before that Bruno was on the corner, and then the Hinman's Shoe Store, and then they had the photography. Yeah, Friedgen's, the big store, the dry goods store, and they had a deli, they had a meat market, and they had the deli was right before the school, and that was Mr. D'Anto. Yes, yeah, he was Dave D'Anto. He was a really nice man.
And Mr. Pusker had the
Pusker had the shoe store, and there was a meat market there, and then later on, Patio Hairdressers was in there. Yeah, they took over Friedgen's like. Yeah. The street view of Main Street looking north between Columbus Avenue and the Main Street School. That's right before the school here. That was, yeah. No, it's fine. Street view of Main Street looking north between Columbus Avenue and Main Street School. You see the wall? And then it's the Main Street School. That's where the deli was, D'Anto's. And then to the left was Pushkar. I call it Pushkar. Puska, he was the shoemaker, and it went down towards the corner. Okay, this street view of Main Street looking north between Columbus and Main Street School. Look at that. Look at the road. This was in 1907. This is a street view of Main Street looking west. It's towards the bridge. The street view, another one of Main Street looking west. Is that Immaculate Conception Church up in the corner? Way up, that steeple on the top? Is that the Immaculate Conception Church? The steeple right in the middle, all the way in the back. No, if it's looking west, it wouldn't be. It would be east.
That's the left. Could that be the Congregational Church?
No, it would be, if it's looking west,
Looking west.
What year is it?
it doesn't say.
Because Assumption was until 1911.
That's looking towards Yonkers. It's not towards Immaculate. It doesn't say.
What's that church in Crestwood?
St. John.
Asbury. You think that could be it? Well, I don't know. Look at that.
Sort of like on a hill there.
Yeah,
That could be.
that could be, but it's definitely a church of some kind. Okay. This is a street view of Main Street looking west. There's your trolley. Trolley tracks and little stores with all the awnings and all. They used to
So
pull
what
in.
is, I'm just trying to get my bearings. Where is this going?
This is looking west. It's
What's
on
the
Main
right
Street.
side there? What would that be that's there now?
Well, you see the one with the turret?
Yeah.
That's the corner of
Main Street
Columbus.
and Breckenridge.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
Columbus.
okay.
So this is up where these stores were.
it's looking
Yeah,
down.
it's close. The one on the right is closer to the school, right next to here, where we are now. Yes. Yeah. right next to the Main Street School, that little section.
Bearings for a second.
I know, you have to think about it. The street view of the Lyric Theater, located on the south side of Main Street, near the intersection with Columbus Avenue. And this was when they had the tires, and you gave. During the war, you could bring metal things, and you got something off. And I used to. My mother used to go, to get away from all of us. If she was there, I'd go in the movie and looking for my mother, and she'd be on one side all the way up, and Aunt Peg would be on the other side, everybody. But that was the thing to do. And Mr. Lenhart, and they were. It was a nice movie, The Itch. Remember The Itch? We called it. Oh, they gave a free dish. And you know what? Gibbons always had they had, on Saturdays, you could go and they had little talent shows. I was in a talent show there. And they had a talent show, and I think you paid a quarter or something to get into the movie, at the place. And if you did this talent stuff, then you didn't have to pay. Huh? Oh, whatever, 11 cents. But anyway, it was really nice. Remember Lemon Ice worked there? Lemon Ice, remember that? Vigilante, his name was. But they called him, everyone in Tuckahoe had a nickname. Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is a street view of intersection of Main and Columbus looking east. The building at the intersection is the Kramer Building and show store. This is the corner of going north to the school here. I mean, to here, going up Main Street. Yeah, on the left. Okay. This is a street view of Main Street looking at the intersection of Main Street and Columbus Avenue. The buildings shown are between Columbus and the Main Street School. Look at that. Oh, here. You see these two posts on the right, the corner? They were on, that was on the wall of my grandmother's property, which was, Salerno took over the second section of his restaurant. And he bought that property that was my grandmother's house. And now they're building a brand new building up on Main Street there, that whole section. But that wall, that's part of the wall there. This was a street view of Main Street looking east of the Washington Hotel. And it's during a parade. Look at the old cars and all that. That's still another one. Yeah, same one. This is a street view of Main Street looking west from the corner of Washington Street. Look at the trolley, the old car. Look at the pole, must it be street light or whatever, it's tilted over. Okay, this is a street view of the railroad powerhouse, which is located on the west side of the railroad tracks. In the background, the building on the right is the Lyceum Stock Company building at the intersection of Columbus and Underhill. When we said the Lyceum, that picture in the back is where the bowling alley, it's that building there. These people is where Growlers is now. It's right there. That's the old powerhouse that they converted. They made that. And the railroad tracks are right there. This is a street view of Lake Avenue and Bronx. Well, it's not Avenue, Street, I say. Looking west. The house behind the fire truck belongs to it was Leroy Lockwood. He was our man that he rented when I lived on Main Street. We used to pay $30 a month rent for that cold water flat, And the Parkway Oval is located on the front of in front of this fire truck. This is where they had the children's where they had the the children's thing right over here, this part. But that was on the corner. They knocked it down.
They raised it and they put up a new house.
Yeah, yeah, they have a new house there. Yeah, but that's what that is. Yeah. But that was on the corner there. This is a street view. This is on Marbledale Road, looking north. The building shown is the T.D. Waddleton Furniture Factory. which was the maker of fine furniture. The company stayed in business until the Great Depression. Also note the train tracks that also service the marble quarries. Right there. That's on going down on Marbledale Road, like almost where the ice house was. You know, remember the ice? Yeah, Conlon's was on the left side. But yeah. Yeah, and it went all through and Circuit and came out through Columbus and Lime Kiln, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, Westies, yes. And then where King's Electronic and all that was over the years, all those places.
We used to walk through Collins to get to Montville Road.
Yeah,
We wanted to go to Eastchester.
yeah, everybody cut through there. It was good. Yeah. This is a street view also on Marbledale Road looking north. And this is that building, the furniture factory. That's okay.
We certainly enjoy giving the presentations. We do have some on the village station. You look for Tuckahoe Village, and down towards the bottom you'll see history. We're also on YouTube, and this is about one of about 12 or 14 presentations. Last year we had the story about Columbus Avenue before urban renewal, which is another interesting one. I think you saw it last year. Yes. Actually, it started with Mayor Gibbons, and actually before that, they wanted to build a Parkchester type development here in the village of Tuckahoe, and it didn't go. The discussion of urban renewal began before World War II, and it didn't begin, I guess, maybe until the late 50s or early 60s. And there were so many different plans and so much discussion, so much aggravation. I mean, it brought a lot of mayors in and a lot of mayors out because they couldn't decide on it. One of the odd things that they wanted to do was stop Columbus Avenue at Underhill, have all the traffic go up Underhill, and then make a right onto what is it, Cameron Place, is it? Yeah, and then to Main Street, which was a stupid plan. I mean, the whole village was up in arms over that. Just a...
Who would have designed that?
Well, a number of different presentations. I don't know who but you know, the village board had to decide on that when it was brought. I think Mayor Uvina was there at the time. You know, it was just a terrible thing. And it was such a hard thing getting started because most of that money came from the federal government. And who got the money first? The cities. Mr. Rockefeller got a lot of that money to rebuild New York City. It had to be. You know, the cities had to get it first. So we waited for years. And then when we did have an okay on it, there was double-digit inflation. And the builders wouldn't touch it. For about a month's time, the interest rates were about 21, 22%. Could you imagine? And then it went down to double digits, about 11, 12%. So that's the woes about urban renewal. But when they did do it, they did a nice job. Same with White Plains. They started before us, and it wasn't until years later that they finished theirs. Yes?
You were the photos that said it was this building formerly, and then it was this building, and now, was the building demolished, or was the name changed, or did they burn?
Either case, you know.
Some of them remained, like the Bentley building, we call it. That was always there. It
So
never
it's the
would
same.
change.
Yeah.
Different occupants, yes.
Now, did others, burn or?
Oh, some of
Yeah.
them were just taken down, they were made of wood or whatever.
Presently, it's owned by Tommy Del Giudice.
Yeah, but other buildings on like Main Street here, they were like all the ones from the what we call Bruno's, the pharmacy and all. They were all taken down when the mall was made, and that whole section. They were all taken down.
One of the
No, Carvel, that side.
yeah, one of the oddities, and it's still present. I think most of you know the building by the railroad where the Korean market is. Now, that was down the floor. They built a floor over the foundation there, and then it went up to the building. So the lower basement, there's two basements. The lower basement used to be a shooting range for the police.
Yeah, that's where the fresco is.
Yeah, frescoes, right. Yeah. There's so many interesting stories here. Yeah. Well, between Betty and Arlene, we really get a lot of history from them. Yeah. They wondered why they had to take 35 Columbus down. Yeah. And then there's a reason for that. There was a Master Buno building. Everybody, I think, knows that. When they went to demolish that, the bulldozer bounced off the foundation. The foundation, like that thick. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of sadness to it and a lot of good to it, because we remember, and Willie Jones told us the story. He was the relocation director. And he went to this elderly lady, and he said, "Look, we got a nice new building. It's a senior building down on Union Place." He said, "Oh, no. When my husband come, find me." He'd been dead 20 years. The poor old lady, It's just one of those sad things that you laugh and you say, "Boy, that poor lady." Yeah. Well, we're only too happy to answer any of your questions. Anytime you have a problem on history, either I or Richard. Incidentally, Richard is the not town. Yeah, I was elevating him to the county. See. He'll be showing a slide presentation now. I don't know when any of you are old enough to remember this, but on World War I. Now, the reason why we're interested in that, this is the 100th anniversary of the U.S. getting into World War I. And there's so many interesting things. I have two volumes out there of photos, if you want to look at them later. So we'll start that one about 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, so we got another hour.
Yeah, 1 o'clock we're doing World War I.
World War I is interesting. And is it?
And it's local history.
Yeah.
It's not just about.
And at the times, there was a lot of discrimination, mostly against the Germans. It was a pity, because they were loyal Americans. It's just that, like we did with the Japanese in World War II. They just felt that they couldn't be trusted, which is ridiculous. All righty. Yeah. Yeah, Richard will be doing that this afternoon. Okay? Thanks very much. Yeah. Thank you. Arlene, Elena, thank you. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dick Forliano. I'm an Eastchester town historian. And about 2 years ago, a group of local historians and archivists, including Lissa Halen, the curator at the Eastchester Historical Society, Phil and Alice White, the Bronxville historian, the New Rochelle historian, and the head of the Crestwood Historical Society, we said, how can we, what's the first project we should work on together? And we picked the 100th anniversary of World War I. And the following presentation really deals a lot with local history, but also, as you see on the thing, World War I. Now, back then, World War I was called the Great War. It's the first modern war in American history. And this presentation will talk about 10 changes that took place in, what was that? And I'm sorry, let me just get, technology is not my strong point. Here we go. The war, this is the first modern war in the 20th century, and it started with a rather inconsequential event. A Bosnian terrorist assassinated the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire in Serbia. A chain of events took place, and the world went to war. And it really started because of entangling alliances, human folly, when Germany invaded Belgium. The Germans had a plan. If they could get to Paris in 42 days, they would win the war and everything would be over. The only problem was Belgium. And they got stuck in a neutral country. 5,000 civilians were machine gunned to death. 25,000 homes were destroyed, along with cities. And Belgium's neutrality had been violated, and because of entangling alliances, the world went to war. Again, this was the first modern war. There had been trench warfare as far back as our American Civil War. But in World War I, 20 million people died. 21 million were killed or wounded. 50 million people died of the Spanish flu, which was directly related in many ways to the devastation caused by this war. And new weapons were introduced, like poison gas, airplanes, tanks, and the aviators went up in their airplanes without parachutes, and the killing was ghastly. Which brings us to the second great change. America had been lucky. We had been protected for over 120 years by our two major oceans. And then America, in 1915, in the late spring of 1915, this ship was sunk, the Lusitania. Immediately, 1,200 people died in the cold waters off Ireland. 127 Americans died. And one person, an Irish-American nationalist from Tuckahoe, also died. But what most people didn't realize, that in the hull of the Lusitania were tons of ammunition. Now, here's the problem. America was technically neutral, but we were really an arsenal for the Allies, an arsenal for Britain, and which made American neutrality a fiction. It was also an era when we had the highest proportion of immigrants to native-born Americans. And the largest immigrant group in America, and a very large immigrant group here in Tuckahoe and Eastchester, were the Germans. The population of the country was 100 million. 9 million were Germans. And unlike the Irish and the Italians, who made up most of Tuckahoe and Eastchester, the Germans had been here longer. Their big barrier with their language, but they were very well accepted. And President Wilson, who we'll talk a lot about, said, we really can't get involved in this war because we don't know how much support we're going to get from the immigrant population. This is a cartoon saying, let's not get involved. And the favorite song at this time was I Didn't Raise My Boy to Be a Soldier. But when you think about World War I, what song do you think about? Over? Right. But before the war, it really didn't look like we were going to get involved. Now, let's go to the home front. We're going to get back to the war in a section. But what was happening in Eastchester, Bronxville, and Tuckahoe during this war? Invisible but drastic change was taking place. And I owe a lot of this to the work that the Roundtable did over the last 2 years. Here's a map of Lower Westchester. But let's move ahead and look at our pre-war population. The population of all of Lower Westchester was exploding. Now, I'm going to get into Eastchester, Bronxville, and Tuckahoe in a second, but the population of Bronxville increased fivefold. The population of Tuckahoe almost doubled, as did Eastchester and the surrounding communities. Why were so many people moving out here to Lower Westchester? Let's use Eastchester, Bronxville, and Tuckahoe as a case study. This is a map of Eastchester, Bronxville, and Tuckahoe today. Most of you don't realize it, but up till 1892, a village in the town of Eastchester was Mount Vernon. And then when, in 1892, Mount Vernon became a separate city, Eastchester itself was changing. The first village in the town of Eastchester was Bronxville. And we'll talk a little bit in about 2 minutes about Bronxville. But the most important, and I'm on my home ground territory here, was Tuckahoe. After the American Revolution, everything was destroyed in Eastchester. What was left was this small hamlet called Tuckahoe. Now, there's a lot of versions, and Phil, you can tell me about it. Tuckahoe could be, the name comes from a root grown in the ground, or it could have been what the stagecoach driver would say about the Tuckahoe Hills, Turkey-Ho, got shortened to Tuckahoe. We're not sure, but it all is a nice story. What saved Tuckahoe? Well, first of all, it was a cotton mill that eventually became Hodgman rubber. But the big thing was what? What do you see all around us? Marble. 1822. Marble is discovered along White Plains Road on the property of the son of the town supervisor, Jonathan Ward. By 1844, and we see the railroad here, Tuckahoe marble is famous all over the world. And the picture you see here is when the railroad arrived, when the railroad tracks were lowered, but the railroad first came in 1844. And that brought the Irish immigrants in. It also brought estates that were built all over the town, and it also brought other industry into the town. And by 1913, you see a picture of Village Hall. Tuckahoe, and you'll see this more in the next picture, is a thriving working class and middle class community. I'm just going to sit down and just show you some things. This is a great poster. We have it in the wall outside of what Tuckahoe looked like. The most important industry in Tuckahoe was Hodgman rubber. During the war, 1,700 people were employed, but the marble quarries were still at work. Now, this is Marbledale Road. I take tours, and all of a sudden one day I'm going down Marbledale Road. I didn't realize I was in the middle of a quarry. Then you have the quarry up at Fisher Avenue. You have and there were two other quarries. But Tuckahoe was a thriving middle class. Also, at this time, hundreds, actually 2,500 Italian immigrants had moved into the town. And at the beginning of World War I, with the people off to fight, it started a migration of African Americans from the South. Tuckahoe was booming. Now, because we're in Tuckahoe, I'm going to get a little off script. What killed Tuckahoe? Hodgman rubber moves out in 1925. The quarries, quote, closed down in 1929. And what happens in 1929? The great... So Tuckahoe is difficult. Now, just south of Tuckahoe is Lawrence Park. Now, I know the people of Bronxville would love to say that Bronxville is the first community in Eastchester. It's the last community in Eastchester. Because when this man, William Van Duzer Lawrence, gets off the train in 1890 and starts looking at abandoned farms and old warehouses and some beautiful estates, he says, hey, I got an idea. Why don't we build a railroad suburb for the rich and affluent from New York City who want to get away from the congestion? And he builds one of the most affluent suburbs in America, starting with Lawrence Park. Each year, he builds 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6 homes. And by 1898, Lawrence Park and Bronxville becomes an affluent suburb, like Rye and Chappaqua. And there's a lot of talk about whether we should have a hotel or not here. And I'm not going to get into that. But how many remember the Hotel Gramerton? And that, there was a fire, it burned down in 1904, they rebuilt it in 1905, and it was a very attractive site. What happened is the Lawrences were running out of money in 1970. We're going into a recession. It caused a huge furor in Bronxville when they sold it and ripped it down, and you only have now the arcade that's left. Now, what about Eastchester? Eastchester, the present day Eastchester is the last of the three communities. What was Eastchester at the outbreak of World War I? It was mostly an estate, it was partially an estate owned by Isaac Iselin. You've all heard of the New Rochelle Water Company, now it's Suez. That's the company he had. And this was an estate that he owned. He owned all the land all the way up to Lake Isle Country Club. And there were 3 reservoirs. The first one was built in 1890. The second one, this one that you see here, 1895. And then Lake Isle was built in 1905. Eastchester was mostly undeveloped land, a scattering of neighborhoods, and farms. And then something changed all of that. Lissa, what changed all of that? And now, by the way, Lissa is the archivist for the New York Eastchester Historical Society. And out of this presentation, we have probably 10 other presentations that come. And she's been helping me along with this presentation that I'm been working very hard at putting together along with the other people in the round table. I love this picture. You see the picture to the left? That's a picture of California Road, the young girl feeding her cow. And the other picture is a picture of a home along on White Plains Road. This is Garth Road. But the biggest change took place in transportation. Back at this time, people got around by horse, or trolley, or train. And the biggest change in American society was the Model T Ford. The cost of an automobile went down to $300. So you put in an inflation rider. Can you imagine being able to buy a car for $3,000 today? Well, they had 15 million of these. The Bronx River Parkway will come in and will be completed in 1925. But these invisible changes are changing the way we think and act. Now, let's get back to the war. And Sal, I want to thank you for pointing out this era. Sal here? Oh, what's wrong with this picture? This is, let me tell you what the background, and there's a mistake here that Sal pointed out earlier today. Okay, the German diplomats, led by their Kaiser, made a drastic mistake. In February of 1918, America was going to stay out of the war. There was no way we were going to get involved. They began resuming unrestricted submarine warfare. Now, what's wrong with this picture? Yes? Yeah, I got the wrong picture. I yell at my students when I'm sorry. I had shut it off before. Okay. They started unrestricted submarine warfare, but Woodrow Wilson's caught in a quandary. He intercepts a telegram, the Zimmerman telegram. Dumbest thing that Germany ever did. They tell Mexico, if you come in on our side, we'll give you Texas. Well, they can give them back Texas because we're playing the Texans tonight, right? The Yankees? Okay. We'll give you back Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. So Wilson was caught in a quandary. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about Woodrow Wilson because in many ways World War I with Woodrow was Wilson's war. He is ranked among the top 10 echelon of great presidents, not like Lincoln or Washington or FDR or Teddy Roosevelt, but with Kennedy, Reagan, Jefferson. If he hadn't been president, Germany probably would have won the war. But he was a man of many contradictions. Oh, I dropped my notes. I'm in trouble. First of all, he's the only president born in a war in a country that he was born in a country that had lost a war. What country was he born in? The Confederate States of America. He was born in Georgia during the Civil War. He was a segregationist who believed, again, contradictions, who was a progressive idealist. He was in the words of one historian, a man of high values and no principles. Once a leading progressive to win the war, he suspended most of our civil liberties. In defense of Lincoln, he felt that once we entered the war, everything had to be done to win the war. Every resource had to be used. Every human resource, every financial resource, and every human resource had to be used to gain victory. You've all seen Uncle Sam. F. Montgomery Flagg from Pelham invented Uncle Sam. In fact, that's F. Montgomery Flagg. He used himself as a caricature. And for the second time in American history, propaganda was used to support the war effort. The first time was during the Spanish-American War. These things are so I'm going to turn it off. I'm trying to. Oh, whenever you want it to do something, it never does. Oh, here we go. I always threaten my students if your cell phone goes off. I never have done. I like to, in my mind, if a cell phone goes off, I'm going to stamp on it. But I can't do that to myself. Wake up, America. Propaganda was used. And again, I told you this before, our favorite song is Over There. And it wasn't just music, it was film. The people I liked the most were the 4-Minute Men. 4-Minute Men were men younger than me, but too old to fight. But they would go into theaters, they would go into churches, synagogues, houses of worship, open-air meetings, service organizations, with a 4-minute pitch on why we had to defeat the Kaiser, why we had to enter the war. By the end of the war, they had talked to over 70 million people to get complete support for the war. And the head of the 4-Minute Men for Eastchester, for Westchester County, came from Eastchester, and his daughter rewrote Over There, and it was sung right at Depot Square by a 4-Minute Man choir. Now, as you see here in this poster, the propaganda was pretty distorted. Now, the person who Wilson appointed head of his Committee on Public Information realized that things had to be done to mobilize public opinion. And the first thing we needed were volunteers. And manpower was important. Now, when the war broke out, we had in Europe, there were 100,000 people in the American military. Our armed forces ranked 17th behind Serbia. When the war was over, there was 4.2 million people in the military. So you had to get people to volunteer. But volunteers weren't enough. We had to go to the draft. And the draft was very important. Now, during the Civil War, there were draft riots because you could pay for a substitute. And we're not going to go into the Civil War draft riot, but this draft was done by lottery. And it didn't matter whether you were the son of a penniless immigrant, an African American, a farmer, or a millionaire. You had to go. And on the local scene, people registered and fought. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is from Tuckahoe. In one parade, the population of Tuckahoe was 3,000, and there were 3,000 people, some from Hodgman Rubber. The school kids were let out, and here's a picture of the parade going up Main Street. Liberty bonds were sold. Now, before the war, our budget was $742 million. At the end of the war, it was over $4 billion. 2/3 of the money came from people buying Liberty bonds. You can see some of the pictures, and they were very important in Eastchester. But it wasn't just, oh, by the way, one way you were shamed into buying it. For if you guys all bought Liberty bonds and John Halen here hadn't, your name would be printed in the paper. So John, you would sort of be embarrassed in contributing for the war. Also, this set a precedent for World War II. During World War II, we had rationing. It was voluntary rationing. Wheat, fuel, meat were rationed. Food will win the war. The victory gardens of World War II were started. And if you needed fertilizer, you could get manure from California Road or in Mount Vernon. Children were used to support the war. Here are the Boy Scouts. I love the story of the Boy Scouts because the Boy Scouts would report slackers, like John back there, who was a draft dodger. You signed up. So did I. John, we didn't have a choice. We had to. But I'm just kidding. I like to tease John. They would go. Now, U-boats sailed up the Hudson River off the coast of Long Island, and the Boy Scouts identified them. They had radios, and they sold bonds. So also children had pageants, victory gardens. This is my favorite picture. This actually was shot during World War II. But where is it? Where is this? Where, and it says, what does it say there? This was the mission statement. And I wish kids today, I taught for 40 years, I wish kids today understood what that really means. There was almost, I didn't say total, but almost total support for the war effort. Listen, you can help me with this. She's taking pictures. The Red Cross. You can help me with this if you want. Lissa's been very good listening to me trying to get my dialogue down. One thing I got to do is I'm going to learn how to use this computer. Okay, women's changing role. 8 million people joined the Red Cross. In Eastchester alone, we sent 70,000 bandages, garments, surgical supplies. We sent nurses over to take care of the wounded. This was a voluntary organization, did a tremendous amount of good. But the most important thing is women's role was changing. The National League for Women's Service was started. What did it do? It trained women to go into business and industry where they had been denied that privilege before. I didn't realize this, but women weren't even used in banks.
You couldn't own property, right?
Oh, you could own property. But if you were married, it always went in your husband's name.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You're right, John. I'm sorry, I didn't mean. And Hodgman Rubber, the leading producer, and Arlene told us about it, the leading producer of rubber goods on the East Coast. There were 1,700 people employed. When 75 men went off to fight, 75 women were hired. Telephone operators. And then, and this is a story I liked the best, is Wilson had a problem. Wilson was a male chauvinist, as many men back then were. He said women involved in women's suffrage, getting women the right to vote, were aggressive and masculine. And the leader of the women's movement, the largest woman, a woman who eventually ended up living in New Rochelle, her name was Carrie Chapman Catt. And she said, well, okay, we got to play ball with Wilson, then he's going to get us the right to vote. But this woman, Alice Paul, said, I'm not going to put up with this nonsense. We've been fighting since the Declaration of Independence, 1776, for the right to vote. Let's picket the White House right now. Now, this is in the middle of a war. No one had ever picketed the White House. So Wilson, he gets up every day, waves at the pretty little women out front, but then they don't stop, and he starts to get irritated. So he puts Alice Paul, he gets her arrested. Gets her declared legally insane. And she's put in an insane asylum, so she goes on a hunger strike. Then they force feed her. And the whole public knows about this. A woman from Bronxville, Virginia Colt, is on the picket line. And then Wilson says, I have to do anything I can to win the war. So he makes a deal. You start eating and I'll support women's suffrage. And that's how the 19th Amendment got through. And she was supported by people. Again, I'm just talking about changes in the way we lived. And each one of these changes are a whole separate talk. I'm actually preparing it for the schools so that they could learn more about history by not just what happening over in Europe, what happened in America, but what happened right here. Now, Eastchester was made of the three largest groups in Eastchester and Tuckahoe were the Irish who came here first, the Italians who came here later, and the African Americans who came when start of a great migration during World War I. And here is now, the idea that we were a melting pot did not exist. That's a fiction. There was a lot of tension, but for a brief moment in time during World War I, all the groups said they would, including the Germans, said they would support the war. Who would like to read this? I'll pick on you because you're closest.
Sure. Cheerful, smiling, and ever ready to take on the heavier set of tasks. These swarthy-skinned brethren have proven themselves extremely useful and equally desirable acquisitions to our community.
Who are they talking about? Italians.
And largely because they have served in an unobtrusive way, our sympathies are immediately awakened by the call for our attention to the need that is very close to our hearts. Some portion of the war charity budget may be directed to the region.
That's your grandpa, Giuseppe DiPippo, who went along with the draft. I think there were like 30 other Italian Americans who were at the time who were drafted. He got wounded. He came back. Your great-grandfather, Alfonso, and I worked with your brother Al doing this on the Italian immigrants. it wasn't always easy because while it seemed like we were a melting pot, after the war it wasn't so great. You've all heard of Sacco and Vanzetti, and in 1924 the doors were closed to Italians, but I just want to, because I'm going quickly here, when I was writing my chapter for Out of the Wilderness, I talked to Carmine Dorenzo, whose grandfather also came over at this time, and she said to me, you know, America was a lot better than the land we left behind. So eventually things worked out well in the long run, but then there were African Americans. 340,000 African American troops, they were called colored back then, we wouldn't use that term today, fought in segregated units. That didn't stop in World War II. The units were still segregated. But one story I always like to tell, Phil, is when Captain Edward Woodward came back to Tuckahoe. He went to school in Tuckahoe High School. The first time he ever learned about prejudice was not here in Tuckahoe where he grew up, it was in the military. So when President Harry Truman made his executive order in 1947, that was a big step forward along with Jackie Robinson for civil rights. But after the war, there was a race riot in Chicago, among other cities. An African American wandered into a segregated beach and 26 blacks were killed. In 1924, the Ku Klux Klan marched down Pennsylvania Avenue. And now let's talk about the Germans for one quick moment. There was German subversives in America. Before the war, there was an explosion in New York Harbor at Black Tom Island, and the explosion of munitions bound for England was so loud you could hear it up in Boston. There were submarines off the coast of New Jersey and Long Island that went up the Hudson River. But many historians think that Wilson went too far in persecuting the Germans. And here are some local newspaper articles on what happened. A woman said something bad about the Kaiser. She was fined, put in jail, says the only way you can avoid being in jail is leave the country. The Reverend Hemline was a minister in Mount Vernon, an Anglican priest. He refused to ring his bell celebrating an American victory. He too was put in jail and told to leave the community. This man, he's the father of a woman in my church, a Village Lutheran church, up the road. Why it's not? I'll try the arrow. There we go. He was a German citizen, and when the war broke out, he was in Brooklyn. For the entire war, he was kept in an intern camp. Don't feel sorry for him. He loved it. He was on a farm in Ardsley. After the war, he went back to Germany. He goes back to Germany, reparations are in. He said, you know, I liked it in the United States. So he moves back to the United States and raises his family here. But there was a very difficult situation if you were German. And I know this from my wife's family. You had a choice if you were German. Are you German or you were an American? You couldn't be both. And there was a lot of prejudice, and Phil, you talked about that earlier, against Germans. It wasn't a happy time in our history. Now, the rest of this presentation, I don't want to take too long. I want to give you a little opportunity to ask questions. Talks about the changes in the world order that were created. World War I was a world to make the world safe for democracy, and a war to end all wars. It didn't either. But it created profound changes in the way we think and live. Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah. Do you have any comments or questions?
When did Rosie and River come in? That was Second World?
Second World War. Okay.
Richard, thank you so much for your presentation. And Lisa Hallen is here from the Eastchester Historical Society. She's the curator there.
Yeah.
And she would like to make a few announcements.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard. Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
Dick Forliano is truly the best. He's the best researcher, the best historian, and his knowledge base is wonderful. And the thing I always love about it, he always talks about the people. You know, he always just gives you a feel for the people, and that's who we all are. And Alice asked me to stop and just also mention that Tuckahoe History Committee is going to try an evening program that we'll have in the evening, so we can have, you know, maybe attract many of you, and if you know people who can come out in the evenings, that we're going to try that. And I was privileged to write the chapter for our 350th anniversary book on the Bronx River, and I've done several presentations on it. It has the most fascinating history of so many things that happened in this town. Everything that happened along the Bronx River, from pollution to urban renewal, it all happened along the Bronx River Parkway, and named, as you know, for Jonas Bronk, who was a perfect New Yorker because he was actually Swedish but sailed on a ship from another country when he came here. So he was really the perfect immigrant for New York when he came here, and that is, his name still lives. So we invite you to that. We invite you on Wednesday mornings. Many of us who are here on Wednesday mornings. If you have stories to tell, or you have photos of your family, parents' wedding certificates, we love to add that to our collection. So many people who are here today were looking through the family books to find out more information on their families. And if you don't have a story, Phil and Alice have even better ones. So thank you for your time today.
I would just like to thank our committee for all the preparation that they did to make this a wonderful day for everybody and to enjoy Tuckahoe history. And thanks to Arlene for narrating the first section. That was very nice, and it was very interesting too. If anybody has any questions, we have all the historians here, so don't feel intimidated, because they'd be happy to answer any questions. No questions? Arlene, you have a question? No? Okay. Okay. Thank you all again for coming, and I hope you'll attend the next event.